Hi, everyone, and welcome to our session on seizing the cloud opportunity safely and securely. My name is Rob Sadowski, and I work in the Trust and Security Product Organization at Google Cloud. Happy to be here. This is a topic that's very near and dear to me, as you might imagine. It's something that we do at Google Cloud every day with many companies in the financial services industry, from startups up to some of the largest financial institutions in the world, and many of the suppliers of innovative technology to those companies. And cloud has been a huge enabler for fintech. It's given access to massive amounts of compute and analytics and many other capabilities. Some things that would be very capital intensive for organizations, especially startups. And I think what cloud allows organizations to do is really focus on innovation and leave some of the infrastructure and other capabilities to a trusted partner. And I think in terms of security, we've seen a big shift over the past several years. When I started at Google almost 4 years ago, the prevailing attitude was really that cloud was another threat, another risk that organizations would need to account for in their security strategy as they do risk management. And over time, that attitude and that thinking has changed significantly. And now today, even some, again, the most traditional financial institutions in the world see cloud as a way to help improve their security, to take steps forward, and really get better at security, compliance, governance, and related, that they can actually be more secure in the cloud. And I think that there was a signal several years ago when Gartner actually came out and had a piece, I believe it was titled, Cloud is Secure, but Are You Using It Securely? And so that's what I want to, and that we want to share a range of insight on today. So I'm delighted to have Bryson Kaler, the Chief Technology Officer of Equifax, who's been driving a major transformation of their business that was already very digital with the cloud and with a major focus on security. So welcome, Bryson.
Hey, Rob, great to be here. Thanks for having me, and thanks for this very important conversation. It's near and dear to my heart as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So why don't we start with a little bit of an introduction about you, your role, kind of what it entails at Equifax. And I think many of people who are here know who Equifax is, but maybe a little color about how you describe Equifax and your business today.
Absolutely. So I'm the Chief Technology Officer, and my job is to bring all of our technology around the world together. I also oversee our product organization. So our Chief Product Officer works in my group, and we work very hard to make sure that we bring all of our data together, the analytics that we have together, to fundamentally help people make better decisions and live their financial best. And helping people live their financial best is really at the core of what we do every day. And we operate, around the world, bringing data together and helping individuals and businesses find the insights they need to make smarter decisions.
Okay, so obviously there's a lot to kind of unpack there in terms of analytics, data, and security is an important element of all of that. So what went into your initial decision to embrace public cloud, and how is it supporting some of those business initiatives that you talked about?
So I've been at Equifax for about 2.5 years, and as you can imagine, for us, the transformation journey that we've been on is heavily tied to security, data governance, and ensuring that we continue to build trust in our products and our capabilities, and that we can continue to, help people live their financial best. And when you think about what are the challenges that get in the way of having the best security, or the challenges that get in the way of having the right data governance, a lot of those challenges, in my view, are caused by, the breadth of technology that most enterprises around the world have built up over time. It's a very differentiated environment, one data center to the next. There's different eras and vintages of capability, of compute, of software, because businesses grow over time. And they're funded on these annual kind of capital-based approaches, and that creates a buying pattern that ebbs and flows.
Mm-hmm.
And so you never get to a place where you've got a homogeneous environment. And that creates real challenge for security and data governance and frankly agility, speed, cost, and everything else, because it's hard to automate when everything's different. It's hard to create that evergreen environment where you're constantly in tune, where you constantly have the same capability, where you can leverage that automation. And really, security comes from engineering done well. Security comes from that automation, that repeatability. When you roll out a patch, you don't want to miss a server. And if you have tens of thousands of servers scattered across dozens of data centers, and you're relying on sysadmins and humans to do that work, it's probably unlikely that you can expect 100% coverage every single time, all of the time, and that we can't allow a human to make a mistake. And so the cloud, to me, really presents an opportunity for world-class security because you now have a consistent environment. You can deploy that globally and end up on the same compute, using the same services, on the same versions. You can fully embrace automation, and because you have that consistency. And that then ties into a number of other things related to your catalog of servers, whether it's your CMDB, your ITAM catalog, but understanding your asset pool is much easier on cloud because, well, I'm pretty sure you're going to bill me for it. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to know what it is. And there's no way for something to kind of fall off the truck and not necessarily get tagged appropriately. So when you think about what the cloud provides, that setup of consistency, the opportunity to fully automate and ensure then that you've got a complete catalog coverage, I think that that's really what sets people up to have world-class security. And I don't think you can duplicate that on-prem.
Yeah, I think that we see that in so many of our customers, hearing the same types of things. It's the visibility you get.
Yep.
It's the ability, we have a saying that we think of the way we can deliver cloud security is defense in depth, but it's scale, right? And that gets to your point about consistency. Can we do the same types of things, that automation, that repeatability at scale that really helps customers like your organization? So.
Yeah.
I think that that's a great sense for the people who are tuning in around what are some of the baseline security benefits and primitives and capabilities, but getting them from a third party, getting them from a provider is often another big hurdle that we see. So as you kind of embarked on this journey, when we're talking about seizing the opportunity, how did you actually get comfortable that you could trust cloud providers, to provide these services, to do that in a way that kind of met your requirements? I mean, I think we have this idea that, okay, well, the cloud is secure, but can I trust the provider on that? So was that an issue, and how did you kind of overcome that?
Well, I think, I've been doing technology my entire career, and so after you do this for many decades, we've always trusted partners. We don't build our own antivirus software. So I have to trust an antivirus software provider that they're giving me full coverage and they're not going to miss a signal or a signature that could infect my company, right? So I think being in technology is about trust. You do have to place bets on partners. And you aren't going to be able to do everything yourself. And so I think when you look at why do I trust cloud providers, I think that I think the three main hyperscale cloud providers that are out there, they have a lot of their core businesses riding on their cloud business, right? And when you think about what does Google have to do to ensure that on the consumer side of Google. They run world-class, billion eyeball products. I think 9 of them. There's a lot of engineering might that goes into running those well, protecting those, and ensuring that those are world-class in how they operate, and that the Google Cloud is able to take advantage of a lot of that and provide those capabilities. And there's a lot of sharing that goes on that's well beyond anything I can do inside my 4 walls. And if you look at any of the cloud providers, you could point to areas of their business that are critically dependent upon them staying a step ahead, leveraging that repeatability, investing heavily in ongoing security enhancements, the monitoring, the forensics, and just frankly the signals. You guys see more of the internet on a daily basis than I'll see in a decade, and so those are beneficial. And so I think the leap of faith that you take when you place a bet on going to the cloud is just the modern version of the bet we've always placed when we have selected a partner for the long haul. And frankly, the cloud gives us so much flexibility that it puts even more pressure on the cloud providers to stay current, to constantly invest, because my switching cost is now much lower. Very different than that was 10 years ago, when you were making these very large investments that had to be depreciated over a long period of time, and the switching costs were incredibly hard and high. So I think that it's actually easier today to place those bets than it was, but it's fundamentally what we've always done as technology leaders.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. One of the things that we see across our basic customers, whether it's in fintech or financial services or otherwise, is the use of multiple clouds, is the use of being able to get the best capability or preferred capability from one, and easily be able to move data or workloads if that's what you choose. And so I think we're in a world where that flexibility continues to have providers work to raise the bar. And I think the other thing is that giving organizations like yours and others who choose to use our services transparency into our operations, into those capabilities. There's been a lot of advances on that front, because a topic we'll touch on in a minute here is regulation and governance, and how can we provide evidence, just like we were able to gather evidence on premises to internal audit groups, to regulators, to others. We have to be able to do that same type of thing. So that transparency is something that if organizations aren't aware that you can get in the cloud, is certainly something that you can. So.
Well, and I think the scalability of cloud makes it easier on that transparency as well, because how many times in our lives in an on-prem environment have we had to zero out a log file to immediately reclaim space to keep the system from crashing, right? Yeah. I mean, that's just unfortunately, kind of an on-prem, reality. And getting into infinite horizontal scalability that the cloud provides keeps teams from bad hygiene, I think, way more easily and more often than how we operated in our legacy on-prem world.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of you're spot on. Some of those assumptions about technical limitations, you can kind of remove them. What if we could do this? What if we could keep 30, 60, 90, 180 days of telemetry for threat detection or for auditing or for other things like that? It really opens up possibilities that you may have built processes around that now those assumptions aren't valid. And so you can change the way you do things, whether it's threat detection or working and evidence and that sort of stuff.
And how many times in an on-prem world were you doing patch weekend and you get the news, hey boss, guess what? We got all of the patching done except for that rack over there. Well, what's wrong with that rack? Oh, well, the firmware on those servers is different because we got those as an add-on, later in the patch, blew them up. That's the reality of the struggles we all have in our legacy environments. And again, the homogeneous of cloud compute, storage and networking capability, the ability to really treat that as infrastructure as code, I now have, guaranteed consistency within the instance types. And so I, don't run into those roadblocks. And that's a huge benefit to security.
Yeah, I think that in terms of having that consistent environment, that consistent stack, so that and I think one thing it really helps with is the skilling of workers. If we don't have to have a workforce, our developers, the other people who work with them, the testers and other people working on different stacks, different technologies, that we always have one consistent stack that's always updated, that we can automate, that again, the infrastructure is code. It helps with that key point, that's important to so many people, I think, who are watching or listening, about velocity that you made before. It just facilitates that much more smoothly.
I was talking to a business leader in the company yesterday, and we were talking about some improvements that we were seeing. And I said, look, it's really not surprising, because before we had 13 versions of this, and it was really hard to do those 13 things well. But now we have one version, and it's actually not hard to do that one thing incredibly well. And that focus that the cloud enables with the reuse and the consistency, it's not obviously just about security, but it's about uptime, it's about cost efficiency, it's about speed to market, it's about pleasing your customers. There's just lots of benefits.
Yeah. So I think we've talked a whole bunch here about the positive side of the coin. Is there anything that's more challenging as you've embraced the cloud in terms of security, either now or right when you started?
Well, I think you just touched on it a little bit in terms of the skill. It is a different mindset. When you think about treating not just infrastructure as code, but your policy as code as well, and the brutal automation that is required, you don't want to allow the shortcuts on cloud, because the cloud is powerful. And if you don't have the right controls in place, then you can hurt yourself. And there's plenty of examples of where that has happened. Obviously, you can hurt yourself on-prem too, but frankly, the on-prem environment is so limiting. It's harder. That's a good reason to stick with it, but I do think that it is about the skill set. It's about the understanding that ruthless automation is not just a better way; it's actually the only way. And that takes time to build that muscle memory up, not just in your engineering team, but across your product organization, how you think about the life cycle of a product and its development and testing and deployment, your DevOps culture, your SREs, the operational teams and monitoring. That whole flow all has to be automated together. Because at the cloud, you're moving at such pace and speed, and you're able to, spin up and tear down entire environments, within minutes. And so that power only really comes to life if your entire team, the entire culture, and the philosophy to which you think about, just engineering excellence is in lockstep together across all roles. And that's, to me, the hardest part of cloud. It's not the technology. It's the people and the culture and the repeatable discipline that you've got to, kind of retool for.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, is that it is not just technology, it's people and process, and an opportunity to improve again and implement some best practices, like continuous delivery, continuous integration, all those those types of things, because cloud allows for automation of that. But it is not just technology. To get this right, it does require some thinking, some re-engineering, and hopefully some improvements in processes.
And I think it's the discipline is important, not just on the engineering pipeline flow, but there's always something new coming out. The power of the cloud is there is something being added to the catalog of a cloud provider every day, and it's much easier for us to take advantage of those capabilities and test them out, and they may solve new or old problems in new ways, which is really cool. But you could also let that turn into sprawl. So I think the discipline is now We don't have, it's not a procurement limitation. It's not how quickly can we go write a new contract and go procure something. We now have to have the architectural discipline around when are we going to adopt something and when aren't we going to adopt something. And we're our own governor around the pace at which we move now, which is different because in the past, we had bureaucratic bottlenecks in the organization, that were kind of self-governors to progress. And now we've moved that, which is very powerful, but it's something you have to be aware of.
Right. You can decide when to, how much of the tap to turn on, turn off, and what really makes sense.
Right.
I wanted to turn quickly to a topic that is really important for, I think, any financial institution or organization, which is the regulatory and governance side. You touched a little bit on it, but I think that this has been something that we've seen as a provider, where we are constantly engaging with regulators, with auditors, to help them understand the technology, to help them understand the differences between environments that the organizations that they work with have been working in the past, and how cloud kind of changes things. So how have you been able to convince regulators or your internal governance bodies or teams that you're meeting your obligations as you use the cloud?
So, I guess first, I just have a belief that the regulators, the auditors, they're our friends.
Yeah.
They are actually helping us. They ask good questions. They point things out. They make us better. And so you have to go into it with that mindset, right? I'm all for learning. I'm all for self-improvement, and every day we strive to improve. And so, and I think you have to have patience. This is a new way of thinking, and if a regulator is working a lot in legacy environments, or an auditor has come off of auditing legacy, it is a mindset shift to now think about, now I'm going to audit cloud, right? And what I have found works is you got to take time. You got to back up and explain why the cloud provides the opportunity to be more secure than you could ever imagine on-prem. Why the cloud enables better encryption, why the cloud enables better data governance. And you have to explain and understand the limitations and the complexities of the old. And actually, that's a benefit, because many auditors understand, because they've been doing it, all of the limitations that they've seen in the old. And if you then apply that and say, hey, let's talk about how the cloud enables us to fix the things that we've all struggled with in the past. And I think you just always have to set time to reframe, re-educate, and help that mindset get into the right place before you go diving into the audit or the regulatory conversations. And I have absolutely found regulators and auditors, very willing to, listen, to learn, to change their mind, and to evolve with us, on our journey. And frankly, get to a place where they're then at the end cheering you on, and your wrap up with the regulator or the auditor is, hey, we really are proud of the journey you guys are on. You've got to complete this, because you've actually explained it so well, and we understand the benefits that you're going to have when you're fully cloud native and you've completely gotten rid of your legacy environment, that we want you to get there as quickly as possible. And that's like the full shift that, I think, you just got to take the time to have those conversations.
Yeah, I think that that the point is so well taken. We're all trying to raise the bar, right? From a regulatory perspective, from a provider perspective, from an organization perspective like yourselves. We all have the same end goal in mind, right? And it's a collaborative process to all move towards that and really build that shared understanding of how we can advance, not just any individual organization, but really the state of the industry as a whole. And that's why it's important in forums like these, to talk about the potential benefits, to get everyone kind of educated, and make sure that everyone understands what the potential opportunities are here for us all to improve. So,
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Well, yeah. So we're kind of drawing near to the end of our time. So, in terms of wrapping up, what's the one piece, if an organization is there listening and, they're thinking about adopting the cloud, they're thinking of, either initially or expanding what they're doing. What's the one piece of advice you'd share with organizations as they go on this journey, similar to what you've done?
So, having gone through these types of journeys many times, the one thing that I have learned without question, um, and I wish I could give you two, but I'll give you one, is speed. When you start that hybrid clock and you've got old and new, that is a really hard place to be. It's complicated. You've raised your complexity, you've raised your cost, all kinds of challenges. You want to get to that cloud native state as fast as possible. And don't lift and shift. Cloud native state as fast as possible. Moving your old problems, even in a container, with you is not helpful. You will compound your problems that you had on-prem on the cloud if you don't do it properly. So get to cloud native, get there as quickly as you can, and recognize that that hybrid state is, in my view, not your end state, but a milestone to where you're really trying to get to.
It is a journey, absolutely. Well, Bryson, thank you so much for spending some time with us and chatting with me. All the insight that you shared, I think very valuable for our audience, and I think we both encourage you all continue to think about this, embrace the cloud, take advantage of the capabilities that Bryson talked about to kind of raise your own posture and do some of the innovative things that we talked about. So, thank you all very much for tuning into our session, and have a great rest of the conference.